In a previous video, I have discussed the benefits of finasteride and for which we use it routinely. However, when somebody talks about making your hair loss stable before a hair transplant, that term is not accepted. And in this video, I will go on to show why you should never give finasteride before a hair transplant. Why? Because you don't flog a dying horse. So the aim of this video is to give you the pros and cons of taking finasteride before a hair transplant. Finasteride has two effects. Number one, stabilizing hair loss in the long term, decreasing hair loss, maintaining hair, and decreasing miniaturization in the long term. And secondly, it's used for 6 months or a little bit more after a hair transplant. So these are the two principal advantages of finasteride. When finasteride is given before a hair transplant, you are trying to revive the donor area. You're trying to make the relatively impermanent donor zone, which is miniaturizing, to look permanent. Now, this is not in the best interest of the patient. As far as finasteride use in hair transplant goes, the term stabilizing hair loss before a hair transplant does not hold water. In a previous video, I have discussed the benefits of finasteride, how it causes regrowth of miniaturized and miniaturizing hair, and how it increases the hair shaft diameter, and how the hair looks full. So you can refer to that link in the description below. Finasteride, as we all have discussed before in the previous video, acts by inhibiting type 2 5-alpha reductase. Many hair transplant clinics would see your donor area, and if it is a little weak, they would recommend you go on a course of finasteride for 1 to 3 months before a hair transplant is contemplated. Now, this is fraught with danger. This planning is cockeyed. Also, this is at variance with my technique ANAGEN Q+ hair transplant, which we have discussed in a previous video, and the link also exists in this present description of this video, in which we try and extract maximum ANAGEN hair. Why ANAGEN hair? Because ANAGEN hair will give the best growth. And ANAGEN hair will stay for a long time. The result that you obtain by transplanting ANAGEN hair will be long lasting. It will stay forever. It will be a joy forever. However, if with finasteride you make catagen hair look like ANAGEN hair and you harvest it and relocate it, this hair is not going to last you for long. It's merely an ostrich kind of behavior that you don't see what you don't want to see. It may make the patient happy for a short while, but in the long term, the patient is going to be dissatisfied. Why? Because he might not want to take finasteride for a long time. Taking finasteride for thinning hair, taking finasteride when the donor area is weak, is just borrowing time. The moment you stop finasteride, the hair are going to go back to their original stage. This will not only decrease the hair transplant density due to thinning of hair after stopping finasteride, but will also shed a lot of hair which are miniaturizing. So taking finasteride before hair transplant is fraught with danger. So why do clinics recommend finasteride before a hair transplant? It could be because of 5 reasons. Number one, they want to increase the quality of available grafts. They want to transform the miniaturizing and the miniaturized hair into hair which is of good caliber, good thickness, that resembles ANAGEN hair, to increase the number of grafts available through the extended scalp donor concept. The extended scalp donor concept is wrong because when you're extending the scalp donor beyond the traditional permanent zone, those hair are weak hair and they will go back to their original stage when you stop finasteride. Extended scalp donor means extended use of finasteride. Finasteride is also used to prevent shock loss. That is a good use. It is also used to increase the quality of the hair. If the hair are thin in the donor, if the patient has suspicion of diffuse thinning and he is pressurizing the surgeon for a hair transplant, even if it is a low density hair transplant. Some clinics do a hair transplant in such cases. Finasteride may also be used for decreasing the shedding period or decreasing the amount of hair which sheds after a hair transplant. Many times this approach of the clinic is dictated by the pressure the patient puts on the doctor. Increasingly, more and more patients travel overseas for their hair transplant and they want to get the maximum out of this single trip by way of grafts. You try selling 3,000 graft procedure to a patient who's coming from, say, New Zealand to India, and another clinic recommends 6,500 grafts. The patient will work out the economics and will think that 6,500 grafts is going to work out much cheaper for him than making a trip for 3,000 grafts, not knowing what is in store for him, that those 3,500 grafts extra were not actually ANAGEN hair. And when he stops finasteride after 6 months, he's going to lose them. He wouldn't have lost those 3,000 grafts which are ANAGEN in quality, but the extra 3,500 is surely going to lose, which will be a much bigger loss than the additional cost of one more journey, one more round trip that he's trying to save upon. But he doesn't understand. So though finasteride before a hair transplant works by decreasing the shedding immediately after the procedure and by controlling shock loss to a great extent, but the flip side is full of drawbacks. And these are, by giving finasteride before hair transplant, you're merely flogging a dying horse. Whenever you flog it, it'll come to life, and when you stop flogging, it'll lie down listless. So this is what happens when we are using finasteride before a hair transplant. So this analogy can be translated into use of finasteride before a hair transplant. The gains what we have obtained from taking finasteride will be lost over a period of time after you stop finasteride, which is typically taken for 6 months only after a hair transplant or a bit longer. The moment it is stopped, the condition of these hair which were miniaturizing or miniaturized in the scalp donor will revert back to their original state, not always in the patient's best interest. There is a reason why we harvest only ANAGEN grafts from the scalp donor. They might be less in number, but they are long lasting. ANAGEN grafts are a joy forever. So therefore it is very important when you see results of a particular clinic to know the long-term effects, whether the grafts which were placed were miniaturized or miniaturizing and they soon fell off after 6 months when the patient had a bountiful result which didn't last. So it will all make you wonder whether this patient who was selected for a hair transplant and put on a course of finasteride 1 to 3 months before the procedure, whether he was adequately counseled, what to expect after finasteride was stopped, or was he in agreement with the doctor that he would take finasteride for a long period of time. So these points are to be taken into consideration while researching. So in short, the take-home message is that when you're coming to a doctor for a consultation, initial consultation, and if you're taking Propecia, you should stop it 1 month before you visit the doctor. Only this will give your doctor the real information that he seeks about your donor area before he accepts you for a hair transplant procedure. Donor areas artificially maintained through finasteride do not last long. No respectable hair transplant surgeon of repute will ever start you on finasteride if your scalp donor area is weak, knowing fully well that this benefit of finasteride is temporary, it's transient, it will not last forever. So in the end, I would say that finasteride, whenever taken, should be taken in 2 instances. One is to stabilize your hair loss. If it is used in hair transplant, it should be stopped before the procedure, for there is no point flogging a dying horse. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and leave a comment below if you have any questions, and I'll get back to you the soonest. Stay safe, be happy.